What's up, YouTube? Going to talk a little bit about dry fire and resources to get you started in dry fire today. Now, start off, I do not sell anything related to the shooting sports. I'm a consumer of all things shooting sports. Second thing, I have been a government employee my entire life. And if the government taught me one thing, it's to throw money at problems. So I have tried a bunch of different dry fire programs. I'll tell you today which ones I haven't tried and tell you my thoughts on them and which ones are good and which ones are bad, and you can decide what's best for you. Third, I have not tried everything I'm going to talk about today, and I've also, this is not an all-inclusive list. I'm sure there are other things out there. These are the ones I've heard about and or used and or considered using. So, with that said, getting started, if you have been to a competition shooting event, if you listen to podcasts, they all have one thing in common, and that is you go there, you realize you're maybe not as good as you thought you were, and you look at the guys that are better than you or gals, because there are some of those, and you say, how did you get that good? And most people will say, I dry fired. All right, you got to start dry firing, and largely they're right. Dry fire, the biggest thing with dry fire, especially if you're coming from, I would certainly say, an Army background, because we don't push ourselves. The police are trying to get better, and they start out with pistols. So if you're shooting USPSA, if you're coming from the Army, something like that, you're probably not going to be as good with a pistol. And if you're coming from the police officer, they're going to be accurate with a pistol. They may not be as fast at some of the things. So my starting to dry fire, I started out shooting 3-gun, and when I was getting started with that, this dry fire stuff was still kind of new, and people just said dry fire, dry fire, dry fire. So I did some stuff and it wasn't very good, and I didn't get better very quick at all. And then somebody turned me on to Joe Farewell. So I think it was 2022. I paid for Joe Farewell's 30-day 3-gun improvement course, and I liked that. And what I liked about it was it had a structure to it. Right? If you're new and people are saying go dry fire, you don't necessarily know what that means. And he had a step-by-step day 1 to day 30 to get better at dry fire. I did it before my first major match, and I was much more confident in my gun handling skills. And that's the number one thing you're going to get out of dry fire is gun handling skills, and speed in gun handling skills. Right, but he had a good rotation between pistol and rifle and tube shotgun, which I shoot open, so I don't shoot a tube shotgun. He has since added some drills at the end of the course for open shotguns, which I think are good. I used a lot of them this last year when I shot the IPSC qualifiers in shotgun. Joe has significantly, one, his prices have gone up since when I did it, and two, he's expanded his library greatly. He is a professional shooting coach, and that's what he does. That's how he makes his money. He goes out and trains people, and then he's got, I would say, semi-passive income in these online shooting courses and his dry fire crew online. But he's got a pistol-specific course. He's got a rifle-specific course. He's got a home defense course. He's got a whole bunch of different courses that you can go out and you can buy. And then sometimes they're open, sometimes they're closed. I don't really understand his deal there. And sometimes he opens them, and if you buy all of them, then you get a discount. That may not be all-inclusive. I'll put a picture of his website up here with that. All right, so there's Joe Farewell. I'm a fan of that. But when I got, before I started getting into some of his other online stuff, I went to Steve Anderson. Steve Anderson's a big name. Some people love him, some people hate him. Topic for a different day. But he's got an old school book, Refinement and Repetition. I like this book. What's good about Joe is it's videos, and he's showing you how to do things. If you think you have good skills, this is a good book to work on your those skills. All right, so it's, hey, here's a drill to do, here's some par times, and here's a place to record your par time. There's about 20 pages of Steve's thoughts, and if you listen to Steve's podcast, this is Steve's thoughts. You can kind of read it in his voice, in his excited voice, and it's not bad. This is a good book. But when Steve, and I will say this in reality, Steve goes to matches, he's around the game today, but he's getting older and he doesn't compete in USPSA. Last time I listened to his podcast, he was doing some Steel Challenge, but doing some other stuff. Like I said, this is still a good book. I used this the majority of 2024. 2024, yeah, 2024, and some of 2023 to work these specific drills at scale. He's not a big fan of scale targets, but that's the space I had at the time, so I was doing these at scale. Again, this is solid. It's good drills. And if you're worried about, talking about gun handling skills with Joe, this has par times that will get you to a certain level. The trick obviously is getting the par times from dry fire to live fire, which I'm still working on. So I'm still B class. I'm not higher. But if you're like, hey, I want a book of drills and I like books and I like things I can hold, I don't like online, this is a good place to start. From there, I went to, okay, now I can shoot all the targets on the stages. I'm not forgetting stages, but I'm still not doing very good. It must be, so time, right? So time. So then, listen to Steve's podcast. He teamed up with Miss Kita, and I don't know how to say her name, Bussy or Boosie. She has a whole book here. She's an Army veteran. She's been around the shooting sports for a while. She's got a lot of big names in here that she's dropped. I don't know her personal backstory about who she has and hasn't been romantically involved with. I don't care. But she's been around. She's done some stuff. Here's what I'll say about this book. I was 45 years old when I bought the book. I'm still 45. And I did read, I think I've got half a chapter left, basically, whatever. If you played high school, I would say football and basketball for sure. Nothing earth-shattering in this book. If you played baseball, most of your movement was a crossover. Your first movement was a crossover step, whether you're stealing a base, whether you're moving for a ground ball, fly ball in the outfield, whatever. Most of your first steps are crossover steps. So some of the sideways movement is maybe a little bit different. Drop steps, things like that you might pull from sports. She's got opinions on. But I think, there's, again, if you've played sports, nothing earth-shattering in here. If you grew up doing marching band, which is, marching around with however many pounds a tuba weighs is physically active, you may not understand some of this stuff. So I think there are people this is good for. Going back to Joe, Joe has a movement class in his dry fire catalog that you can get. And then finally, I've kind of got into the practical shooting training group, or practical shooting training live. That is Ben Steger and Joel Park. So Ben Steger, polarizing figure, been kicked out of USPSA, back in, does a lot of military law enforcement training. Joel Park, good shooter in his own right, but he kind of sells himself as Ben's sidekick often. But he's the one that runs. They have a podcast. He's the one that kind of spearheads that. I still haven't figured out what Joel does, if he's a full-time instructor or software engineer or something like that, or both. I don't really know. I just got this book. This is the newest book. People say that he just rinses and repeats his book. He being Ben Steger. I think it's Steger. It's spelled like Stoger the shotgun, but I think he calls it Steger. But just skimming the book in the week I've had it, this is not a bad book. This is not as detailed as this book, right? There are mini drills in here. There are, course of fire specific drills in here. So both of them are good books. I would say they're complementary of each other. They're not, one is better than the other. This was written in the days of iron sights. The newest one specifically is Guide to Red Dot Mastery. So it has some specific red dot drills in it if you're interested in that kind of thing. So those are the books I have. And then I want to talk 3 other people real quick. Well, one I'm going to mention in passing. I think Lena Michelik is starting, I hope I said that right. Again, names are not I'm not the best at. I think she's starting something up. I'm not sure. She's got an online community that she kind of built during her SIG days, and she's getting away from them. The other 2 names that I know pop up quite often, one is Tom Castro. And if you're in the shooting community, you know Tom is a polarizing figure. Some people like him, some people hate him. I am interested in Tom. He seems to be an interesting person. Not going to go so far. So he has energy, and he gets people talking, and he makes a lot of people have fun and gets a lot of people interested in the shooting sports. So for that, I think Tom is a positive influence. I think there are other things with Tom that maybe aren't positive that I've heard that he's talked about on some of his stuff. We'll listen to his stuff and talk about it. I have not. I would like to take a Tom class, which I might do in the end of June up in North Carolina, and I would also love to squat with him sometime. And I want the Tom experience. I'll be honest with that. But what's interesting about him, if you're USPSA specific, is he has a 6-week dry fire course. So very similar to how I started out with Joe Farewell with that 30-day 3-gun class. Tom has that 6-week class for USPSA. So if I was getting started and I was doing USPSA, that is something I would be very interested in. I've poked around his website. I can't figure out how much it costs. So I can't figure out if it's similar to Joe Farewell's prices or more or less or whatever. But I know he has a 6-week dry fire program, and I think people like it because it's structured. Day 1, you do this. Day 2, you do this. Day 3, you do this. And from the clips I've seen on social media, you've got Tom in the background telling you how awesome you are, even though he can't see you. So it's like doing, 1980s aerobics, and hopefully he's not wearing a spandex G-string. You never know. And the last guy, probably the polar opposite of Tom, but I think he's out of Colorado area. I hope I say his name right as well. Rob Epifania. I'm sorry, I got 2 more. Rob Epifania is one. He's got a system called the Accelerator, right? And his website is the Systematic Performance Concepts. I don't want to say he's a dry person, but he's a much more measured person. He doesn't have, listening to Tom on social media or checking out his social media, listening to his podcast a little bit. He's kind of an up and down kind of guy. And if you go look at him, his match results kind of do that. Rob seems to be a very measured person, very flat person, and very cool, calm, and collected. So just a different energy, right? I'm not saying good, better, or worse. I'm trying to help you make a decision. But he is another guy that I think people I've talked to have gotten good results from his stuff. So another person to go check out. The last one I want to mention is the Practical Shooting Training Library. This is the kind of the new kid on the block, as far as I know, for dry fire. This is a bunch of the guys out of the Masterpiece Arms pistol team have gotten together and built a library that you can go in and pick and choose. And I was poking around on it. It looks like you can say, I want to do this, and I want to do this, and I want to do this, and I want to do this. And they've all got different prices. Whereas Joe, you're going to pay a price for his pistol library, and a price for his rifle library, and a price for his 3-gun library. And sometimes you can get a bundle and get the whole library, all the libraries. Whereas that Practical Shooting Training Library looks like it's got, it's similar price, but it's not it's, hey, here's all of our draw stuff. Here's all of our movement stuff. Here's all of our this stuff. And so who's in that? Well, that's Travis Tomasi, obviously the captain. That's some of Joey Sauerland stuff, which you can get off his website or there. And then I want to say it was Aaron Edens was the other guy, which I'm not sure exactly who that is. I know he's a top shooter. In my mind, he was part of AMU, but I don't think he'd be able to do that, so I don't think he's part of AMU. And again, I'll put that picture of that website up here. But those are the resources I know about. If you're someone that likes structure, the Rob Epifania, the Tom Castro, and you're only interested in USPSA, those are the 2 sources I would say dip your toe into, depending on price. Again, I don't know how much those are. I haven't found that. If you want soup to nuts, Joe Farewell is a great place to start. His pistol course, granted the first 10 or 15 are kind of safety rules and stuff like that, but it's over 100 different videos of here's how you do this, here's how you do this, here's how you do this. So when I shoot a match and I'm like, man, I really sucked at leans. All right, and that's what I was doing last summer. I was really struggling, and I still am, struggling with leans around walls with shotguns and rifles. I went to the rifle course, and he's got this is how you lean around a wall. Here's a drill to use to work on it. So I really appreciate, that's how I use his library. I've watched the pistol. I've watched, I think, 80-90% of it. I watched it after I had arm surgery, and I had nothing to do with sit in this chair and watch videos. But his is a great library to, man, I'm struggling with this aspect. You go watch his video, and this is how Joe does it. All right. So I think it's a good resource for that. I think if you're getting started, I would look at like I said, if you're getting started, I would look at one of hey, here's a 3, 4, 6, whatever it is, week program to kind of help you build the muscle memory of dry firing every day for 15, 20 minutes, whatever. And then you can look at doing some of the other stuff later on if you want to do that. All of them are good. All of them, everybody I've met that teaches and coaches in the shooting community is a good person. And I would consider any of them. I would consider taking a class with any of them. Like I said, Tom Castro's on my list to take a class with. The Practical Shooting Training Group guys, that's Ben Steger, Joel Park. I'd like to take a class from them. And I was looking last summer to take a class with Kita, and she had to move the dates around, and the dates didn't work, right? And even I grew up playing sports, But I'm in my second half of my 40s now, and I've got some injuries, and I'm trying to move better. So yeah, that's what's out there. There's a lot of resources out there if you're getting started in learning how to dry fire, and then I think once you kind of figure it out, you'll do what everybody else talks about, which is you'll build little stages and you'll work on specific things that complements your live fire. All right, dry fire for beginners and resources. Have a good one, YouTube. We'll talk to you later.